Hello everyone, and welcome to the continuation of my Sonic Marathon. So, considering that this is a continuation of my Sonic Marathon, because I'm reviewing the second game, I'd first suggest you first go watching my Sonic 1 review before watching this one, so you can get a point of view of how my thoughts are on that game before listening to my thoughts on Sonic 2. Without any further ado, let's get started. Because Sonic 1 came to be such a big success and Sonic succeeded at becoming Sega's mascot, there had to naturally be a sequel. And this is not surprising, considering that Sega had managed to pull off something that nobody else during that time had succeeded at doing, rivaling Nintendo with their Super Mario. So Sega kept on with the competition. So this game was born, and the rest of the games in the series as well. Sonic to me is such an icon. He has done something unique with the platform genre that no other had done before. And not only that, he had managed to rival against a franchise that is huge, no other than the Super Mario franchise, of course. But I think one of the biggest reasons as to why Sonic has still survived over the years is because he's just such a cool concept already on paper. You play as a blue fast-running hedgehog with an attitude that runs super fast, defeats robots, and saves the world numerous times. That is quite a neat concept. And they did not have any such thing as cutscenes, considering that it was an unusual thing for this time for platformers to have. They still managed to pull off to show Sonic's characters in the games. If you stand still, he does this impatient pose to show that he cannot stand standing still and just wants to keep on moving. And for a game that has no voice acting or cutscenes, it's very impressive that they still were able to show the characters' personalities in the game, and again, via no dialogue at all. Sonic does not need any dialogue to seem cool. His poses and way of speaking with his poses already makes him cool. And his attitude of being brave and not fearing danger, like hazards and robots, just makes you feel like Sonic is like your inspiration. The one you want to become. Maybe that is just me, but I'm sure that many others feels this way as well. Okay, so let's dive into the plot of the game. This orange fox, Miles Tails Prower, of which later became yellow in the future titles, which I find weird, who finds Sonic, all by accident, this random day, decides to team up with Sonic and follow alongside with him, because he finds Sonic to be cool, and he also wants to be like Sonic. For example, he wants to have the ability of Sonic to not fear anything, and stand up for himself, no matter what happens. Tails is like that guy who represents us, Sonic fans. Maybe I'm the only one who thought of that, but in a way it's quite an interesting theory that could be true. So anyhow, back to the plot. Robotnik has returned to build his ultimate weapon, the Death Egg. So Sonic and Tails goes off on their journey to stop him, save the innocent animals, and bring their little land once again to peace. The plot is once again straightforward. A bit of a change of pace, which is a little refreshing. But yeah, overall the plot is simple and I don't mind that. Especially not for a game like this. It's nice with more developed stories and all, so long as it's not done right. So I don't count Sonic 06 as a good plot. But to say, stay safe, just having a simple plot is probably for the better. And at the end of the day, the story keeps you motivated enough to do what you're doing, and to do what you're doing. That is really all a plot should be required to do when it comes to the platform genre, at least. As I feel that the platform genre does not require well-developed stories to be a good or masterpieces. And Mario is proof of that. So if it's okay for Mario to just save the princess all the time, then what makes Sonic less worthy of him? Who at least makes a bit of a plot twist to try to be a little refreshing every and each time. I'm sick of hearing that double standard. The graphics in the game are a step forward from the first game. The textures look more detailed, the color shading looks a lot nicer and crisp, and the overall choice of colors combinations with how colorful it looks just makes Sonic 2's graphics outshine Sonic 1's graphics by a mile. The soundtracks in this game is simply put great. Pretty much all the tunes, except for maybe like 2 soundtracks, are all very catchy and memorable. And those tracks may even get stuck into your head for days. And that is a good thing. The soundtrack in this game outshines the soundtracks in the first game. It's very much catchy, less generic, and overall gives a better presentation. From the Green Hill theme, from Emerald Hill Zone to tracks like Chemical Plants, giving that chemical pop-like music. It's just all very pop-like, and no matter, for the majority of the time, you are dark light zone, etc. It still managed to make itself catchy, and soundtracks just overall comes off as a lot of fun. It mixes cultures and it is not afraid of taking risks or different patterns that they would probably not have chosen if they would not have taken a bit of a risk. But regardless, it works very well. And despite the mixed cultures, for example, Hilltop's Zone's Western-like feel compared to the Egypt-like feel from Oil Ocean, they are all very well polished tracks in their own right. I also especially like it how Casino Night managed to bring that casino-like feel in a cartridge capability sound chip, but it still sounds very well and polished. Okay, I'm sorry if you think I talked a bit too long about the soundtrack, but I just wanted to share my honest thoughts on it. I just cannot get enough of it. Now that we got the soundtrack out of the way, let's look at the gameplay at last. The stage design is largely based around speed, unlike the first game. Emerald Hill Zone is a much more fast-paced zone than Green Hill Zone. And much like Green Hill Zone, it does a good job of teaching the player the game's mechanics. The mechanics are just so simple that the player does not need to take too long to learn how the controls works and such. It's easy to get the hang of it, and that is the fun part of it, and also the charm behind it as well. While this game is much faster than the first game and more based around the concept of speed, it still does a good job of adding in moments where you need to take your time, which largely happens much further into the game, just like it should be. To me, Sonic 2 overall just has a better stage structure. Why? Because with Sonic 1, we went from Green Hill Zone, a fast-paced zone, to a slow-paced zone immediately after. Then with Spring Yard Zone afterwards was more bounce and speedy-like. I don't know, I just feel that Sonic 1 felt a bit confused. Which is not too surprising considering that it was Sonic's first game. So naturally Sega were not too sure on how Sonic should progress from stage to stage in terms of stage design progression. In this game, that sudden change does not apply. I don't mind platforming getting heavier as it happens to all platform games, and it does indeed make the game more challenging, which I like. But it has to happen fluid to me, and very natural, and not make it feel like it's just a sudden change for the sake of being a change. Then again, that is just in my book. So that is why I believe that Sonic 2 is better designed. Despite that, after the green theme Emerald Hill Zone, there's more metal robot-like environment. It's still very fast-paced and tons of fun. And I have not had this much fun in a robot-like environment in a Sonic game until I played this game. And that is saying a lot. The platforming gets heavier carefully through each zone, and it just comes off as very fluid to me. And that also, to me, makes Sonic 2 a more fun game to play than Sonic 1. It's very fast-paced, challenging, but most importantly, fun, which is an important factor in games, if not the number one factor, which makes games a pleasing experience. Much like with the first game, there are bosses in the end of each zone, and the bosses in Sonic 2 are much easier than the bosses in Sonic 1. However, that does not necessarily need to be a bad thing, as those bosses, at least in my book, are more fun to approach and beat. To me, it's more about the journey and thrill than the difficulty. Though I will say that the Sonic 1 bosses were better in the aspect of letting you think rather than rush. Unlike Sonic 2, where you most of the time can rush after you have mastered the bosses. But hey, at least the bosses were not as easy on your first playthrough. But then again, there's no time machine, so you can go back in time and re-experience that thrill of challenge. I don't know, it's very plain. It's a mixed bag when it comes to the improvements with the boss battles, when comparing it to Sonic 1's bosses, in my opinion. The amazing ability for Sonic 2 to feel fresh constantly through the adventure just amazes me. The first stage is a fast-paced and straightforward. The second zone, Chemical Plant, is more about avoiding the pink water and running through loops and platform about. Then we have zones like the Casino Night, where it's almost like playing a pinball game, except that the ball is Sonic. And let's not forget, probably my favorite zone, with the best soundtrack in my book, and stage design, Aquatic Ruin. It's more based around avoiding traps, enemies and obstacles, up hills, while at the same time trying to not fall down hills so you fall into the water. So you have to go through the water's path. So the underwater gameplay, which according to many is not that great, is a punishment rather than a force to the player. So you get punished to play that gameplay if you're not skilled at the game, as the game wished you to have been. And I don't mind that. To me, that is a brilliant gameplay structure. I was not a big fan of it when I first had played the game as a child, but I have grown to appreciate that design choice more as I have grown more. And the overall designs of the classic Sonic games as a whole. Something worth noting is that in this game you have the option to play as Sonic, or Sonic with Tails running alongside you, or just as Tails. I honestly don't get the point of why Tails is even a playable character in this game, as he plays just like Sonic, with no changes at all. And to make it worse, he can't become Super when he has collected all 7 Chaos Emeralds, unlike Sonic, who can transform into his super form in this game. Oh yeah, right, the special stages. I'll get to that right away. Unlike the first game, of which had 6 Chaos Emeralds and no super form at all, in this game there are now 7 Chaos Emeralds, and for the better, you actually have a reason to collect the emeralds in this game. That is, if you play as Sonic. If you collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds you can, again, like I said earlier, transform into your super form. But before we get to the super form, let's dig into the special stages. So pick up your shovel, because this is going to be a deep hole. Oh boy. So the special stages. Boy, where do I start? Unlike the first game, where you had to have 50 rings without getting hit and jump into the big golden ring to get into it, in this game you have to collect 50 rings, pass a checkpoint, then jump upwards it, or above it. And just like that, you're in it. While I find this method better than the first game, it's still very off how the checkpoints portal to the special stage inactivates once you have run off the checkpoint off screen, which is very easy to do in a fast-paced game like this. So even though you may have 50 rings, but pass a checkpoint and go off screen, you will be forced to find a new one because the one you just passed off screen does not count anymore. This I find frustrating and very off, and just the struggle you may even have went through just to get into the special stages is not that fun either. I would not have minded it if you did not lose the rings, most likely due to bad design, but I'll get to the game's difficulty in a moment. So, in those special stages, you run through this 3D effect-like ramp, collecting the amount of rings the game is asking you to collect. Does not sound too bad, right? Wrong! There will be bumps appearing around the ramp, and just one hit from those things pretty much makes you nearly have lost all your rings, and regardless if you try to get them back or not. Now, that is not much of the problem in my book, but that if you play with Tails, who is played by a computer and shares your rings, he gets hit a lot, and you most likely can just lose those special stages due to Tails. Your worst enemy in those special stages is, that is right, your sidekick Tails. I don't hate the character or anything, but the way he was presented in those special stages kind of makes me want to tear his hair off, which says a lot considering that I like Tails a lot. So, let's see here. To sum it up, playing as Tails is pretty much pointless because he plays exactly like Sonic. And playing as him while collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds will not turn you super. Then we have the option of playing as Sonic with Tails. On the other hand, he will be your worst enemy in the special stages, and turn them into an unplayable mess. What an off way to present Tails into the series. Not much of a good first impression of Tails, if you ask me. Meanwhile, people like to complain in the newer Sonic series how the characters aren't presented well. Well, guess what? Already back in Sonic 2, the character wasn't presented too well. A new character wasn't presented very well. And when I'm sure I'm just referring in game, but still, he wasn't presented well. Tails was presented like absolute shit in game. Anyways, back on track with Tails. Yeah, poor little guy. So if you plan on getting all 7 Chaos Emeralds in this game, play as Sonic alone. However, if you are only playing the game to just beat it and very much don't care about the emeralds, play whatever way you want. Whatever should work just fine for you. The special stages, when you're only playing as Sonic, are more fun by a mile, in the least, and at least more playable. So I find those special stages decent at its best, which is when you play as Sonic. I still think it's really dumb how you have to figure out this crap out by yourself, rather than the game telling you about this. But hey, whatever. Super Sonic, of which you get when you have collected all 7 Chaos Emeralds, is a lot of fun to use. However, I find it off how you're forced to transform into the super form as soon as you have collected 50 rings and jumped. It could especially be annoying for people who does not want to become Super Sonic in a specific time, but yet the game is doing it against their force. Now, let's discuss the difficulty of the game. One of the biggest things brought up when talking about Sonic 2. In this game, running into enemies feels rather easier to happen, and that is because you're running very fast. However, I don't believe this theory entirely, as I could imagine more trial and error with your first playthrough of Sonic 1, which did not teach the player very well the concept of how you maintain the speed and the thinking behind it. You may get hit several times in Sonic 2, but it's all acceptable for one thing: the rings. You can get as many hits as possible as long as you have rings, and this indeed makes the experience miles better. The game is not unplayable. It's a bit of trial and error, but not necessarily in the worst way ever, or in the worst shape ever. In fact, it's far from that. However, I still believe that this game is better than Sonic 1, and a great game at that, because it improves upon the flaws from Sonic 1 very much, and that is all I can ask for in a sequel. To do, in the very least. It's more fun and overall just a very well crafted game, with better presentation and such. Thank you guys so much for watching, have a nice day, and I hope to see you around.